And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to On.net Live. My name is Cecil Phillip. And today I'm really excited because we're going to do something a little bit different than what we usually do. So if you're new, On.net Live, we usually have program managers and a lot of open source maintainers, people sharing products and really cool, things that they're building. But I thought, well, why don't we take a little bit of a step back and what do we take a look at the perspective from someone that's just learning .net, like starting from scratch, kind of going through their paces and trying to understand like what does this ecosystem look like from a person that's just getting in it. And so my friend here is going to tell us all about it. I'm really excited that you're here. Why don't you really quickly just introduce yourself to folks, tell them who you are and what do you do?
Hi everyone, my name is Elahn Danee. I am a self-taught C#.NET developer. I started this journey back in August 2020, mid-pandemic, and I do not plan on quitting, and I'm so happy that I made the decision to learn .NET and to speak with you all today.
Awesome. And so I really want to dive into your story, right? And I'm really curious to hear about,
Yes.
Why did you decide to learn .NET? How are you learning .NET? How do you feel about it in the community and all of that? So we're going to hold on to that. We're going to talk about it.
Okay.
But before we do, one of the things I always like to do in this part of the show is always acknowledge all the folks that are watching us live. We always say we have tons of folks that, check us out from all over the world. I'm in Florida right now. I know our friend Elahn here. She is on the West Coast of the United States. West side. There we go. But I know for all of you folks that are here, I know we have people from all over the world that always check us out. So I'm going to look through the chat really quick just to see where everyone is from. And I could see, there we go. We have some folks here from Turkey. There we go. Shout out to Turkey really quick. Where else do we have folks from? We have some folks here from Africa. I see India inside of here. A couple of folks from the United States. There you go. Just folks from like all over the place. So always, again, as always appreciate y'all being here. Really, really hope that you guys keep watching the show that we come up every Thursday. Oh, there we go. We got more folks. Yeah, we got Uruguay. Wow. Again, tons of folks, right? More folks from Turkey. We got a lot of folks from Turkey. Shout out to Turkey. We got a lot of folks in here. Los Angeles. Looks like you got some people from your side of the world too, like in here checking
Neighbors.
out. Neighbors, Mexico. Again, we always appreciate folks. So I always want to make sure I give people a moment, you know what I mean? Just to let you know, like I see you, I hear you, and I'm glad that you're here. So thank you so much for joining the show. Now, with that being said, we're going to switch over super quick and let's take a look at some links because I want to talk about some of the cool things that have been happening inside of the ecosystem. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see what's been going on. So where's my screen? Can't find it. All right, found it on my screen. Lost it for a second. All right. So yesterday, Telerik introduced something called Telerik Repple for Blazor. And I was just like, a Repple for Blazor? What is this thing? And I checked it out and it's really cool. Essentially, it's almost like if you're familiar with like JS Fiddle or any of those tools that'll let you write JavaScript in the browser and then it'll just render it for you. I think like React folks and Vue.js folks have different tools like that. Well, now Telerik has created one for Blazor. So you could, create, your .razor files and, components and things of that nature, right? And then you could do it all inside the browser and run it and render it. And you'll see what it kind of looks like, right? And it's called like the Blazor, they call it the Telerik Blazor Repple, which is really cool. So you could write it, you can run it, you could save it. I'm pretty sure you could share your code with other folks. If you have code snippets
super cool
that are runnable and you want to give it to people, like you can put it in here and, people could go ahead and check it out. So I always love to see when projects like this are created by the community. If you're new to Blazor, this is a good thing for you to try out. If you're already super deep into Blazor, this is still a great thing for you to try out, right? Because now you can just do everything inside of your browser. So as always, I'll make sure I share these links too inside of the chat for folks that might want to take a look at them. But yeah, definitely make sure you check out like Telerik Repple for Blazor. I think this is really cool. Something a little bit related to this episode. Yesterday, I did a session with my friend Christina Warren over and Ask the Experts, and we talked about getting started with programming. And this is a really great session. It was about half an hour. I'll share the link for this one also. But we really talked about, again, how do I get started? Like, what should I focus on? What area should I focus on? You know what I mean? Like, how do I find the passion and how do I keep the passion? You know what I mean? Like, what are the things that motivates me to go? And I think this is really cool because I think we'll talk about a little bit of that with Elahn today in our conversation. But if you wanted to see the recording we did yesterday, that's available now on channel9.msdn.com. All right. Now, moving forward, we do have some events coming up. Have to mention those. Microsoft Ignite, November 2nd through 4th. That's going to be next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Microsoft Ignite is one of the major conferences we do every year. And there's something here for everyone, which is one of the reasons why folks like Ignite. There's going to be things for developers and system admins and, different administrators, people that are working with Teams and M365 and all these types of stuff. Now, as it has been since, we are in a pandemic, like Ignite has been all virtual. It's all online. It's all free. There'll be on-demand sessions. There'll be live sessions. Some of them will be pre-recorded. Some of them will end up on, YouTube and docs and all these types of things. So I definitely recommend that you come in here, maybe go check out the session. Like, click on the session link and look at the catalog, and you can see some of the things that are going on. Maybe you might find something that you're interested in, or maybe a speaker you want to follow, an advocate, or a PM you want to, kind of follow their work. Like, this would be a great place for you to come in and do that. And last but not least, I've been talking about this for a really long time. We're getting close. I promise I won't be talking about this too much longer. .NETCon. .NETCon is happening November 9th through 11th. .NETCon is a free 3-day virtual conference. We have it every year. It's every November. This year, we're going to be releasing .NET 6. So the latest version of .NET is going to be an LTS version of .NET. LTS stands for long-term support. That means that you're going to be able to call somebody on the phone and help you fix issues and problems and things of that nature, right? But it's going to be happening. The agenda is up. So if you're interested in seeing what the sessions are, who's speaking, you can come over here to the website and do that. There's also the ability to sign up and do local events, which is also really cool every year. You can attend a local event. You can host a local event if you wanted to. As you can see, some of these are in person, some of these are virtual. So all depending on where you are. Again, just like we have a lot of folks in our audience right now, that we have a lot of folks that are hosting virtual events for .NETCon. So here's the Netherlands and, Austria and Germany and Australia, Romania, Brazil, Italy, Japan, Czech Republic, Vietnam, all these different places are going to be involved in .NETCon this year. So again, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of what we're trying to put on. And I hope to see you all on November 9th. Now, that being said, I am going to take my screen off because it's no longer the social show. And it's all about you today. So why don't we get started with your story? I know one of the things that I was really interested in hearing from you was, how did you decide to get started with .NET? Like, what's the thing that made you choose it to be like, hey, I want to learn this thing?
Okay, so it was mid-pandemic. It was August, and just seeing so many people kind of like lose their jobs. And, you're either working from home or you're losing your jobs. And it was very difficult to see that. And it made me realize, like, hey, like, I need to make some type of adjustment in this type of situation. It's never happened before. But one thing that you cannot deny is the fact that tech is the future. And I always love just learning different things, learning new things. So I decided, hey, I'm going to get into tech. I'm going to learn, I'm going to work hard. And so I started going on YouTube and looking at like different languages. Should I do this? Should I do Java? Should I do Python? And this YouTuber that I would watch, he did C#. And so I figured, I'm not going to waste time trying to figure out what language to learn. I'm just going to pick C#. And I like the name, C#.
Sure.
So I chose the language and I started learning. And and I realized that I am super happy to learn it. And but one thing I will say is that it's not the easiest. It's object-oriented programming language. And that's not really the easiest one, but I decided to stick with it because it's like, if that is what is being said, I'm not going to play small. I am going to learn. I'm just curious with it. So I'm going to learn it, and maybe anything after is easy. But so yeah, I hope I answered your question.
So let me ask you this then. I'm curious. Is C# your first programming language, or have you had experience with doing other things? Oh, it is. Okay.
This is my first. Like, that's what I was like researching. Like, I found out like on Reddit, somebody had asked the same question. Like, is C# the easiest language to learn as a code newbie, like starting out? And there is some people who kind of disagree and said it wasn't. Yeah. I hate to say that, but I was like, well, I'm not quitting. It's just a skill that is important. And the fact that you can build video games with it, you can build websites, apps, like all these like mobile apps, all of these different things. I was like, that is what's really cool. There's a lot of variety, there's a lot of flexibility. And I think that's one thing that I was craving to at the time, and being quarantined in a confined space, is the flexibility to create and to explore.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think as I look at my personal history, and like C# wasn't the first language I learned, but it was the first language I taught myself, which is a different perspective, right? Because often we think about beginners. I think sometimes we have to put the word beginner into context. So like when I learned C#, I wasn't 100% beginner. Like I was still in school, but I wasn't 100% beginner, but I was a beginner to C#. No one else was teaching it to me. Like I bought a book and I taught myself how to do it, right? While I was still in school. But then there's also beginners that are like, I'm coming in from ground zero, right? Like I don't have a lot of context about programming language fundamentals in general. And so now I have to learn the language and learn the fundamentals and learn like how this computer thing really works, right? And so now like it's like compounded pressure, right? Like there's a lot of things that are happening there. And so I'm sure for you, when I learned C# it was like a long time ago, right? Blazor and stuff wasn't like a thing when I learned it. I guess my question for you would be, so you decided to learn this language. What are some of the resources that you looked at to get started and figure out, well, this is the thing that I want to do?
I started off with Udemy. I have bought a couple courses, and that's what I really appreciated, like as like self-taught, is the fact that the courses weren't that expensive. So I went on Udemy, spent like $20, $15 to $20 on a couple different courses. And then one major thing that really helped me was reaching out for community. And so I started in August, but in September, I was like, okay, I'm going to need some community. I need some support. So I created a Twitter account. I made a lot of cool friends. I met my mentor on Twitter, who lives on the other side of the world.
That's amazing.
That is what's so cool. I met my really good friend, Sophie. I think she's in the chat right now too. Sophie Obamagi, hi. I met a lot of great people who would answer my questions if I kind of like tweeted like, hey, I need some help with this, or what are some next steps I should take. And Twitter was a huge resource for me. It was Udemy and Twitter and YouTube. I would go on YouTube to learn more about like how to build a certain app, like how to use the for loop, Stack Overflow. There's just so many resources. Sometimes it can feel like a lot of resources, resource overload.
Yeah,
but a good handful amount. Yeah.
Yeah, it can. And I'm looking in the chat really quickly. We had a question that popped in. Someone was like, kind of along the lines of what we were talking about. .NET is so huge. What resource was the most useful to you along your journey? And you just mentioned a little bit, right? Like you talked about Udemy and Stack Overflow and being on Twitter and finding mentors and those types of things. I'll talk about my experience a little bit. And I don't think I've ever really spoken about it on, at least not on this show. So when I'll spill the tea. Did I say that? I do a good job. When I started, so I, first job out of college, I got a job doing .NET, and again, like I'd read a C# book, but I'd never built anything with it, right? Like it's like print line to the console kind of thing. And so I got my first job and it was building ASP.NET applications. I had never built a website in my life ever. So I had to learn .NET like properly. I had to learn Visual Studio. I had to learn ASP.NET 4.5, I think it was at the time. Like this was a while ago. And yeah, I had to, and obviously I had to learn like the company, right? Like the business and the software that we're building. I had to get in the code base and I had to understand these things. And, along the way, they gave me a book, right? And the book was like, no one was putting videos on YouTube, right? Like at least not technical videos. The book was like 1,000 pages, right? It was like this big. And it took me, I don't know, man. And so I'm reading literally every day I go to work, I read, I take the book home. It's like my Bible, right? Like I'm walking around, like my laptop is this big and where's the camera? My laptop is like this big and the book is like this big. I'm like, oh, I got to take this big old book with me. Oh my gosh. And I read the book and I was like, okay, I get it. But then I was still hungry for like more, right? Like I get it, but I feel like there's more, right? And there's a lot of things that I didn't really get. Because, we'll talk about this. There's a difference between I learned how to code and I know how to make software.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things that we don't really teach people. That's one of the things that you get a lot of when you have a job. But if you don't get the job, you know what I mean? Like, how do I get the job if I don't have the job? You know what I mean? If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of things you just don't know, right? And you kind of have to either figure out either from experimentation or just, getting thrown into the lion's den, so to speak. And because of that, I started to do like meetup groups. You know what I mean? Again, this is pre-pandemic, of course. I started to go to meetup groups. I started to go to conferences and those types of things. And, kind of like how you went on Twitter and you found people to connect with and follow and interact with. I just did that in person, right? Like I went down to Miami and I found some folks that, oh, we like .NET too. Come hang out, right? And then we kind of had like a little thing going on, which is great.
That's so cool.
But again, I'm saying this because, again, kind of going back to this question, right? Like, what's useful to you along your journey? I think one, you got to find, like you said, like you got to find a support system. You know what I mean? Like, who am I going to ask the question? Because the book doesn't talk back, right? Like the Udemy video doesn't talk back, right? Like, it's like, who am I going to ask the question to? That's extremely important. Another thing too, I think, as we're going down this line, it's important to know like what's your motivation. You know what I mean? Like my motivation very specifically was I had a job, I wanted to keep it, and I had to learn how to write web applications, right? You might be like, hey, well, you wanted to learn Blazor applications. Someone else might want to write desktop applications or mobile applications or whatever the case is. And I bring it up because the way that you start is different from everybody else. You know what I mean? The way that you're a beginner, like I'm a beginner C# person, but then I'm also still a beginner web application person. You might be a beginner Blazor person. The other guy might be a beginner Xamarin web application person. We're all beginners in something.
Different starting points.
And we all have different starting points, right? So again, I guess this is my very long answer in saying it depends. Right? It depends. That's it. It depends, right? It depends on what you want to do. If you know what your passion is, if you know, hey, I'm going to build this mobile app, I'm going to build this web app, I'm going to build some desktop thing. Hey, I want to do some IoT device, development. Like those are all different starting points, right? So I'd say figure that out first, and then we can kind of go down the line.
Yeah, I figured that my motivation was to learn. I love learning, and I have to do a deep dive. Like I have to understand things more on a deeper level. But I also love creating and building. And seeing something come into fruition. And so it's almost like you can't really get tired of doing of coding if all you're doing is learning and building. I feel like it's the perfect fit for me.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we do this? So you talked to us a little bit about the things that you did. You spoke about Udemy and, Twitter and the resources. I'm kind of interested to see what your experience was like. What did you really learn? How did you feel about the tools? Was it hard? Was it easy? What are some of the things that you really appreciated? And what are some of the things that you think were, it took you a minute, but then eventually okay, I get it.
Right. Okay. So when I first started learning, I was doing a lot of exercises on Udemy or kind of finding exercises online. And I kind of found myself getting a little bit bored. I was thinking, okay, what's the point of this? What's the next step? What is the product that we're building with these exercises? And what really sealed the deal for me is when I went onto YouTube. So I started in August. And so in December, I finally went onto YouTube and I just wanted to build something. So I found this weather forecast app built with Blazor. And I just followed along with the tutorial. And that is what really kind of like blew my mind when I saw the finished product was the fact that like, oh, this makes sense now. Like seeing the big picture, seeing what the client is supposed to see is what helped me kind of understand like, this is why we do the exercises the way that we do them. And this is the type of results it produces.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense. I think
I love Blazor.
I think one of the things where, like someone told me this a long time ago, regardless of whether you're like a book person or a video person, a good practice is to like take it in increments. You know,
Right.
that means that like don't read the book cover to cover and then be like, okay, I'm ready to start. Like read a little bit. And I say this, and for some of us, it might be like, oh, that's obvious. And for some people, like, oh, I never really thought about it that way. Because everyone approaches the problem differently. But it was always, do a little bit and try it out. Do a little bit, try it out. So instead of reading it cover to cover, instead of watching the videos, top to bottom, watch the first one, read the first chapter, and then try the thing, right? Like do the thing that you did in the video or you saw in the video, right?
Right.
Because there a couple things will happen. One, you'd figure out, oh, I don't have these things. I don't have this installed. Oh, his buttons are different to my buttons. Like, am I missing something? You know what I mean? Like things are going to happen.
I am using Visual Studio Mac and they are using the Windows version.
It's different, right? The wording is different. The terminals look different. The verbiage in the menus look different, right? And so, because what can happen now is that you read something end to end and then you try it out and you're just like, I'm completely lost. But you've already burned that time, right? And now you're like, well, how do I do this? And now you're searching, Googling, Stack Overflowing, trying to find your getting started point, right? Which you could have done like last week or early in the beginning, which I think is, is just important for folks to really think about.
That is such a good point. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Go for it. Good point because that's literally my experience, and I took something where I was starting from the beginning to the end, and I did find those discrepancies. So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna write that, make a note of that, to do it in increments, to build it in increments.
Take it in increments. Take it in increments.
Right.
I'm looking in the chat real quick. Just so, folks are talking, and everyone has sharing their experiences as well. So the person saying, I'm a beginner looking for meetups and support to boost my learning. Right. So see, like everyone's doing the same thing, right? Like everyone's trying to connect and find community and find like a support system, right? Because that support system is really important. Looking back again on YouTube, Ronald's saying, I'll focus more on OOP because you can apply it to other frameworks, especially Angular and React. So OOP, for folks that may or may not know, object-oriented programming. So if you do anything with, C#, Java, C++, any of those types of languages, even Python to a certain extent, Ruby to a certain extent, you know what I mean? Like they all allow you to create objects, right? And so now like you could pretty much create your program around those types of things that are going on. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting comment. Learning from books can be hard at the start. I had to build stuff to really get going. Years later, I got a book again, WPF, and that time it clicked. Massive knowledge transfer. So again, kind of going to what I was saying, right? Like, sometimes you read the book and then you'll do the thing and you're like, I don't get it. Like you gotta take things. You gotta take it in increments. You gotta take a piece at a time. I'll be honest with you, because for my job, I have to learn all the time. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you, I'm not going back to college. I'm done. I've had enough.
It's a wrap. No, thank you.
College is good if you choose to go that route. I've just had enough. I'm not going back anymore. But and I say that because even though I did get like a formal education, I still have to constantly learn stuff, right? Like I have to learn every day because of the job that I'm in. And when I think about something like Kubernetes, I'll bring that up, right? You may not know what Kubernetes is. It's not important, but I can tell you, I started learning Kubernetes like a year ago. and I'm still learning it, right? Because for me, it's one of those things that like, unless I actually do it, I'm not gonna get it, right? And so I read about it, I see people talking about it, whatever. And it was only until this year that I was like, okay, I'm gonna actually try to install stuff on my machine. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna try and do some .NET stuff with it. And then it clicked, right? Then I'm like, okay, I can do the thing. But I read all the, watched the videos, read the things, and I'm like, I don't get this. This is too complicated. But then you try it, and then now your experience is a little bit different. So again, I think that's an important point to make.
It's like fireworks.
Exactly.
Sorry if you hear snoring in the background. That's my pug.
Is your dog?
He just decided to take a nap right now, and he's just snoring like crazy.
I can't hear your pug, but I hope your pug is having I hope your pug is having a good nap. So it's all good. It's all good.
He was well rested.
So what I'd love to do, I'd love to take a look at your screen, to be honest with you. And why don't we take a look and see like how do you .NET, right? You know what I mean? Like what tools do you use? How do you get set up? Like I'd love to talk about like what does your your ecosystem kind of look like. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
Cool. All right, so I'm gonna bring up your screen really quick. All right, so this looks like a Blazor application, right?
Yes.
So you have Blazor, you have VS Code. I know for some folks that might be new to this experience, right? Like how do I get set up for building Blazor apps in VS Code? Like what do I have to do or install, or can I just download VS Code and then it'll just work?
So for me, and I'm using VS Code because I love how lightweight it is, and it kind of like it starts running really quickly. So I did. Maybe I should basically what I did is I went on to Visual Studio. I started the project on Visual Studio. I clicked Blazor new template, and then I entered the project name. And I used on.NET Live. And so the project was created. I closed out Visual Studio. I went on to VS Code and opened the file or the folder just to start work, because I preferred it. I started with Visual Studio. I started learning with Visual Studio, but I do like VS Code. Yeah. So right now we have a typical Blazor setup. So you have your program.cs, and it's just loading a little bit. And this is the first class that is called when you run the project. You have your CS proj. This is where you can choose what .NET framework you're using. And then also if you were to add packages, this is where you could see that like the packages were added to. And then imports. Anytime you add like a package, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, keep wrong, but you're right.
Okay. I'm not an expert. I'm trying.
Keep going.
But
keep going.
Anytime you add a package, it should also be added to your imports page, imports.razor page. These are the tools that you're going to be using when running your Blazor project. So that, and I'm bringing that up because I ran into an issue where certain things weren't working the way they were supposed to work. I was like, okay, I added this package. Why isn't it working? And I realized I was supposed to add it to the imports.razor page as well. So just throwing that out there, learn from my mistakes. And then also, I love this part. I don't know what it is. I love working on the nav bar.
Do you?
So yes, so the nav menu, I love it. Okay, so we're gonna go to the Razor page. So under the shared folder, you'll have the main layout of your web page. And you can make adjustments. The nav bar is where you see the home, about, contact me, it could be on the sidebar or it can be the top bar. So I really love messing with that part. And then let's see what else. So that's all under the shared folder. And then the pages is where, you can customize your pages, like your index page, which is basically the home page. You can change the title, let's say home, and hello world. I'm on .NET Live.
That's amazing.
And then when you run the program, that's what you will see on your homepage. So, and data, I'm still kind of learning more about what data is, like what goes in the data folder. I recently used an API, and I put the service information, the HTTP client information under the data folder. So that's what I'm learning right now.
That's awesome. So can I make a couple comments?
Of course.
Okay, I'm gonna make some comments. I'm gonna be gentle. I'll make some gentle comments.
Oh, please.
So one of the things I saw, so when you opened your CS project file, I saw you using .NET 6, which as of today, as we're recording, is still preview. So I find it really interesting because I don't meet a lot of folks that are new in .NET that are brave enough to install the previews and start working with them. So as a new person that's using preview software to learn how to do stuff, like how has that been for you? Have you seen a lot of bugs and errors and issues, or?
So I worked a little bit with .NET 6, but one thing, and I just want to add, is like the minimal APIs. That's what I've been hearing about, and I'm super excited. I've learned a little bit about that, so that's that's about as much as I've worked with. But I mean, like, hey, if you're gonna do it, why not start with like the preview? Why not, it's about
just going all the way.
Going all the way. Like, why not? It's about the adventure.
Awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, I always find that interesting because at least on my machine, I have like multiple versions of it, and even me as a person that I've been doing .NET for a little while, I still run into issues sometimes where I got to switch the version because this is a preview one, and the preview one does this thing differently, and you know what I mean. And you got to keep some of that stuff in your head. So I was just kind of curious, like as you're developing, if you run into like any of those like really fine edge cases. But it sounds like it's been working really great for you. So that's definitely amazing.
I'm so excited to see more, like what's to come with .NET 6.
Give us 2 weeks, man. Give us 2 weeks.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Give us 2 weeks. We'll see. So you mentioned earlier too that you tried VS for Mac, and now you're on VS Code. I'd definitely love to know, and I think I know, but let's talk about it. Between VS Mac and VS Code, like what do you think were the things that made you like one more than the other one?
Okay, so I will say I like VS Code because the setup is quicker. And I don't know if it's my laptop, maybe I need a new laptop or more storage, but I feel like when I run Visual Studio, it kind of takes a while to set up, and my laptop kind of slows down just a little bit. So I was thinking like, hey, like I started using VS Code. It took me a while to figure out how to work it. Because, like in Visual Studio, like if you want to run the project, you just click the play button. But VS Code, at least in my opinion, you're using a lot of the command line. And so it kind of taught me how to engage with the command line in the terminal a little bit more, get more comfortable. But now that I've understood how to use it better and more efficiently, I do like VS Code more because it feels like it's more lightweight on my laptop. It doesn't. There's not a lot of lag time.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to bring out, because we get that question too, right? Like,
Yeah, I know. I hate to talk bad.
No, but it's about telling your truth, right? And that's what I want you to do. Yeah. I think for everyone, again, everyone's entry point is different, right? And everyone has a different motivation. Right. And so because of whatever your entry point is versus mine, like I might prefer a different tool or a different setup, or I might need a different set of resources than you do or anyone else does, just because of what we're trying to do. But I've heard that a lot. Like VS Code is a lot. I like VS Code because of those reasons, right? It's lightweight. for me, it's really easy to set up. I also write in multiple languages, so it's kind of good to have one
Nice.
editor that I could kind of just
Goals.
switch back and forth, and I don't have to like, oh, I gotta spin up another IDE thing. This one is different from this
Right.
one. Like I could just be in VS Code and just open a different folder. It'll just like figure it out. Which for me is,
Flexible.
well, flexibility is important,
It's
right?
flexible.
Flexibility is extremely important. You know what I mean? Speaking of flexibility, I had a question. There was a question in here I wanted to bring up. This one is coming in from YouTube. Well, the question is, what makes C# sweet? Well, this is not really a question, I guess. But he's saying, what makes C# sweet for me is really about how well organized I can be and the
Right.
little sweet syntax like link, data annotations, and other stuff it comes. So I think that's true. I really like how flexible C# is. So C# is a general purpose programming language, right? There's a lot of languages out there that have very specific intents, which is why I always ask folks like, what do you want to do? Like, let's be specific with it. Languages like R or Julia that are very specific to data analytics and data exploration, versus something like Python or Java or C#, which are very general case programming languages. So you're like, hey, I can write Android apps in Java and C# and JavaScript and whatever, right? Like I can create web servers with like Python and C# and you know what I mean? Like whatever the case is.
Right.
So at the end of the day, when folks are like, oh, should I start with this language or that language? Is this language harder to learn than the other one? Again, I always go back to like, well, what's your purpose? Like, what's your intent? Like, what are you trying to do? Or what are you trying to accomplish at the end of the day? Because, time is scarce and, I'm not trying to learn all the programming languages in the world. So if I'm going to pick one, what's the reason that I picked this? Like, what am I trying to do with it? Like, what's the goal? You know what I mean? And once we figure out that goal, then, we can kind of, keep it moving. All right. So here's another one. So Habib is saying, this is a really interesting presentation. I just started out learning about ASP.NET about 4 weeks ago through bootcamp, and I've been struggling trying to wrap my head around it all. Well, again, and I think this is something that a lot of folks face and they deal with, right? I think it's important because one of the things that I didn't have when I was getting started, and one of the things I try to give to other folks, or at least let them know about, I had no mentors. You know what I mean? I had a book, right? I had a book, and the book didn't talk back, right? I mean, I had coworkers, but my coworkers, I mean, they were working. You know what I mean? Like they're doing their job. I'm trying to catch up to them to do, figure out what they're doing. And so, I think what's great about how, like social media and like all these things we have now have made the world different is the fact that it's so much easier for you to find a mentor that doesn't live in the same country that you live in, right? Or find a community or, get answers to questions by people that aren't across the street or even in the same city, right? Like, I think that's amazing. So Habib, what I'll tell you is, .NET has, we have a whole community of folks. You just met 2 people here today. You know what I mean? We're all on Twitter and all these types of things. There are Slack channels, there's GitHub, there's, like you said, Stack Overflow, Discord channels, all kinds of stuff where people are just hanging out and waiting to ask questions. And so the thing I would always tell you, particularly with new folks, is it's usually about like trying to get over fear. You know what I mean? And I think that's important to bring out, because when folks ask, oh, I'm getting in my head, I can't figure it out. You got to get over the fear, right? And once you get over the fear, then you'll be able to ask the question. Because a lot of people have questions and they're like, I don't want to ask it because it's a stupid question. Or I think it's a stupid question. Or I don't want to reach out because they're going to look at me like I'm crazy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think we gotta get to the point of both sides, right? Like as mentors and mentees, to get over the fear, right? Like I'm going to get over the fear of asking someone who may or may not be more senior than I am about the question. And 2, as the mentor, right? As a person that may have a little bit more experience, coming in with more of an inclusive mindset where, oh, I see you sitting there and having a hard time. Can I help you with something? Like I could be proactive with it. You know what I mean? But it has to happen on both sides, right? So that's one of the things that we gotta try and do for each other as we kind of, go through this ecosystem. Okay.
Fear is a nuisance.
Yeah, exactly. So we spoke about So we spoke about your journey, right? And we spoke about how we got to this point. Now, you started this thing called .NET Book Study. And I wanted to bring it up because people in the chat have been like, what's the book study? What are we talking about? Where's the books, right? So why don't you tell me, or tell us, tell us about your book study, tell us about like what it is, why'd you start it, and then what are you kind of doing today?
Okay, so the .NET book study came about because, so first when I met my good friend Sophie, my first Twitter friend, we got to know each other through having our book study. We read this book called Where Wizards Stay Up Late, The Origins of the Internet. And so we got to know each other, we got to talk about C#, but we also got to learn a little bit more about the internet, and it really helped us bond. So fast forward to April, I felt like, hey, I still need to build something. I feel like I'm getting a little stagnant. So maybe we should do another book study. And so she has like this group chat on WhatsApp, and she introduced me to her friends, and we kind of like brought up the idea like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing the book study? And I met her good friend, Gabriel Emanuel, who ended up being my co-host on .NET Book Study. And just the first session, it was so fun. The conversation was flowing, and he brought up the idea like, what if we did this like podcast style? And so I was like, why not? Why not do that? And so, set up the Zoom, set up the YouTube, and, we were going to do our book study sessions anyway. So why not do it on YouTube where we can reach more people, and like other people don't have to feel alone, and we can all learn together. And the book that we were reading is the Little ASP.NET Core book by Nate Barbatini. And so we learned a lot, and, we felt, why not share what we're learning with the world? And I'm so appreciative because it also helped me challenge my imposter syndrome. It's like, important. I'm still kind of a beginner. I don't know what stage I'm in. I think I'm a beginner. I don't know how to do certain things. Why would I feel so comfortable talking on YouTube like I'm an expert? But I feel like the angle wasn't to come off as an expert. It was to come off as somebody who is facing fear, who is challenging imposter syndrome, and who's sharing what they're learning with other people in the community. And I do enjoy that experience now.
Yeah, I think people always think, when I say people, I mean experienced or not experienced, new or seasoned, however you want to look at it. People always think like they're never ready to have a conversation.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things that we all got to get better at doing. Again, on all levels, right? Like junior, senior, C-level folks, like everyone has that same fear, right? Because every level is a new experience. You know what I mean? Like you might be senior for 10 years. The first day you become a CTO or CIO, you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I just got here. I'm trying to figure it out, right? And like we gotta get to that point where we feel comfortable making mistakes in front of people.
Yes.
And correcting ourselves in front of people. But also, because again, it's both sides, right? Like also being able to give constructive criticism in a very respectful way, right? Because sometimes people give criticism, and I'm like, I don't really need that, buddy. Like you're talking to the wrong person, man. Don't talk to me like that. You know what I mean? Like we gotta figure out the right way to communicate with each other. I think that's what we need to do, because on one side of us, like we're afraid to look soft or weak, or like I'm not knowledgeable enough. But on the other side too, it's almost just like I have to assert my dominance over you because of reasons, whatever those reasons are. So like I have to like, what I mean? Like be quick to temper for whatever reason. We gotta check each other, right? Because at the end of the day, one of the things I spoke about, and I'm going to speak about it on a session I'm going to do, is computers are really about people at the end of the day, right? Like if you think about it, like a computer has no purpose without a human being, because a
Right.
computer can do nothing unless you tell it to. That's why we have programming, right? Like we have programming languages to tell computers what to do. Other than that, they just sit on your desk and like drain battery. You know what I mean? Like that's all they do. They literally do nothing. And so if that's the case, you know what I mean, then why don't we try and figure out a way that we can use these things together to make the world work better for us of how we want it.
Right.
Like I'm
Right.
talking to you right now because of somebody wrote some code that I could live stream through the browser on my computer.
It's
That's fantastic.
incredible.
That's
It's
amazing. Right? I
incredible.
love that. I love that. Right? We're
Especially
here.
in a time of like social distancing.
Yeah, I mean,
How,
you could be safely where you are. I could be safely everyone. Again, we got people in here from India and Europe and all over the world
amazing.
listening to this conversation right now. When we can all share our thoughts and our feelings about, oh man, like I've never heard about the little ASP.NET core book. I'm gonna go read it. That's a great thing to do. Oh, I've never gone to Twitter to find community and support. I'm gonna go do that. That's a good thing to do, right? Like we're learning and we're sharing things with each other because someone wrote some code to do it. Right? Like this is why we're here. And so now we're continuing to like evolve the culture, right? Because culture for me is like things that affect and change behavior, right? Like that's how I define culture. And you cannot deny how pervasive technology is throughout everybody's culture. You know what I mean? Like the way that we listen to music, the way that we eat our food, the way that food comes to our house is all affected by technology today. And so when you think about it, me being aggressive to you and me not supporting you serves no purpose. Like I'm just burning, I'm just wasting energy. I could have been doing something important. I could have been helping somebody out. I could have been doing something different.
Right.
You know what I mean? But again, these are important things to tell because again, I'm looking at the chat and I'm letting folks know I see you. I know there's some folks here that are like, I'm new. This conversation is making me feel better. I didn't know other people felt like this. Like a lot of people do. Everyone does. You know what I mean?
That's
It's really
awesome.
just about finding out the places to go. So that being said, you know what I mean? I'm done with my little rants. Sorry about that. I wasn't on a tangent. But why don't you tell me, like, what's next for you in terms of, creating content? Like, what are you working on now? How can people connect with you? Like, how does this kind of, like, what does your future in .NET and software development kind of look like?
Okay, awesome. So doing the .NET book study, it helped me realize what my new mission is now. For me, it's not just about learning how to code. For me is, my mission is to continue learning how to code because obviously the learning never stops. But it's to create content that teaches what I'm learning as well as encourages .NET newcomers. So they don't feel like alone or feel too dumb, like, imposter syndrome where you're scared to ask a question. And then 3 is to cultivate a community where, again, the .NET newcomers can feel empowered, they can feel inspired, and where we can all come together to challenge imposter syndrome. Because from what I've learned, it is everywhere in the tech industry. It's common. So that is my goal. That is my mission. And I am so happy to be here today because I feel like it's just one step in that great direction. So
are you planning to do, I know you mentioned creating more content. Are you going to do more book studies? Are you going to, start doing some live streams? Are you going to create your own Udemy course maybe? Maybe you'll have your own Udemy course.
That'd be cool. I'm going to do more book studies. I really want to get into live streaming, maybe like even Twitch. I have a Twitch account. So, and then I'm working on my website. My website is going to launch very soon. But yeah, that is where I'm at. I'm super excited. I'm on Twitter if anybody wants to reach out to me or would like to speak with me for the time being. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. And
your website is going to be in Blazor, right? Just checking.
Yeah. I'm building it with Blazor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Blazing.
You know, I know one of the things that's usually a lot of fun too. Is like as you're doing it, you know, I don't know if maybe you have your stuff on GitHub somewhere. You know, if folks could look and be like, oh, okay, you know, here's you know her site, her portfolio, her thing. You know what I mean? Let me help her fix some bugs, right? Let me help her fix some styling issues, whatever the case is. You know, put it up on GitHub. I don't know if you've done it already. Is your stuff on GitHub or not yet? Are you like a GitHub user?
It is.
It is? Okay.
I am. I'm getting more acquainted with it, but yeah, it's on GitHub.
Yeah, and so that'll be a great thing too. So if you want, I don't know, why don't you pull up your GitHub on your browser really quickly, so folks could see it. You know, we could have some folks follow you. You know what I mean? They can check out your work, see what you're doing, and like you said, like you're learning Blazor. I saw some folks in the chat here saying, "Oh, what is Blazor? What is Razor?" Like they're still learning too. So maybe they could check out your work, get a little bit of inspiration about what you got going on, and maybe even contribute back. I think that'd be a great takeaway from all of this.
Right. Okay. So pulling it up right now.
Okay. I'm looking in the chat. Let's see what's going on. How you going, folks in the chat? Oh, wow. We got more people still popping in. Shout out to Stockholm.
Oh,
we got
wow.
somebody here from Stockholm that just popped in not too long ago. What else we got in here? There we go. We got a bunch of folks from Nigeria. Shout out to Nigeria, Barbados, Boston. Yeah, we got people from everywhere. All right, great. So here's your GitHub.
Hi, everybody. Yes, this is my GitHub. It's Danee the developer, but maybe you can search me up under Elahn Danee codes. So yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, have any suggestions, any questions, you can reach me here as well.
Awesome. And then some folks, looks like your friend Sophie is like, show your Twitter account too. So make sure you go ahead and put that up
thank you, Sophie. Let me get the Twitter again.
Yeah, Sophie got your back, man. She's making sure you got everything
ready
Sophie. To go.
She's amazing. I'm so grateful for her.
But again, that's a part of this whole experiment, right? Again, one of the things that we want to make sure that we do on the show is not only just talk about, you know, the experienced folks and people that are, you know, have companies and huge projects, but you know, let's highlight and show the folks that are new as well. Like let's, you know, show the, like what are y'all learning? What are you building? Oh, there we go. Anton, shout out to Anton. Anton just popped in a message. Hacktoberfest is still up and going for a couple of days. Are you participating in Hacktoberfest?
No, I feel like I should though.
You can do it.
I have not. I think that should be a goal for myself, at least next for the next festival. Okay, so I just pulled up my Twitter. Sorry, I was just trying to like get it together.
No, that's all good.
But you can reach me at Code the Lightning. It's a Metallica reference.
Nice.
So I'm a Metallica fan. Yeah, Elahn Danee codes on Twitter as well.
All right, great. So you saw the GitHub, you've seen the Twitter account. And then you have your YouTube as well, right? So I'm guessing sometime later on, you're going to be doing some more videos. You're going to be doing some live streams.
Oh, definitely.
So we can follow you and see what's going on.
Yes, and I'll spread the word.
Awesome. Well, folks, I hope you all have enjoyed the show. This has been amazing. Elahn, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, learning about your journey, hearing about the cool things you're doing. I'm even more excited about some of the things that you're going to do. Okay, hold on. Sophie says, I gotta stop for Sophie because she got special privileges now. Please, what are suggestions for Hacktoberfest projects? That's a good question. Let's see.
Great question.
Why don't we go look for some? Can we go look for Hacktoberfest things? Let's see. I'm gonna go in my browser. Hacktoberfest. Projects. Let's see what we got. Oh, I found one. Okay, I'm going to share my screen really quick, and I found a post. I don't know if this is old. This might be a little bit old, but it's still a good link anyway.
Good info.
I'm going to switch your screen for mine real quick. I found this one. Hacktoberfest 69 beginner-friendly projects you can contribute to. Let's see. No C#. That's no good.
Oh.
JavaScript, Python, Rust, Go. We gotta find that. Let's see. Hacktoberfest. What do we got? Hacktoberfest starter project. Hacktoberfest 2021. So Hacktoberfest is held usually by DigitalOcean for folks that don't know. Let's click on Start Hacking. I gotta sign in. I don't want to sign in. I don't like signing into things. I just want to search events, resources. Doing your first pull request. Okay. Maintainers, beginners. Let's go to beginners. Up for grabs. That's what I want. Up for grabs. Fantastic. All right. Filter by, let's see, .NET. There we go. Boom. There we go. So here you go. Here's a whole bunch of .NET projects that have up for grab labels on the repos. So look, the .NET runtime is here. This one's super intense. I won't actually call this, but there's a lot of other ones in here. Definitely recommend you check out. Money Fox, Poly. Poly's a really cool project. Fake It Easy, one of my favorite projects as well that I've used in the past. FS Lab. Look, the API docs, if you want to contribute to documentation. Documentation is a great way to get started with open source because, you can get used to what the project structure is and don't have to really worry so much about like the syntax and semantics and the building of things. So we got that. What else we got in here? Anyway, I'll share this link in the chat for folks that want to see it. This is upforgrabs.net. I'm sure there's a few others as well that you could use if you're interested in getting started with programming.
Awesome.
And Hacktoberfest specifically. So
I'm gonna look into that now.
See, I'm just here to give you work to do. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
Oh yeah, and I'm accepting it.
I'm giving everybody homework. So yes, I have dropped the link in the chat so you can see it. Upforgrabs.net. Again, if you want to follow along on Twitter and social media accounts and all those types of things, you saw it. This video is still going to be available on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, just hit that little rewind cursor thing. Just take it back and like take a screenshot of the links if you didn't get them. But that being said, I just want to say thank you to everyone that was able to join us. This was a great conversation. Hope you all had fun. Elahn, I hope you had fun. I had a great time. So we'll see you all next week when we're back for On.NET Live. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And yeah, I'll see you next week.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I just would like to say thank you again to my community. Thank you to my mentor. Thank you to Sophie. And thank you to my co-host, Gabriel. But yeah, I just said thanks.
That's cool. Okay. All right. Bye, everybody. Take care.